Do you think charisma is one of those things that you either have or you don't? Do you think, how do they do that? They have such personality, such charisma. Well, it's not all down to luck. This episode will tell you a bit more about how you can lean into people and be that approachable person. Welcome to the Clever Together podcast. My name's Corinne Wilhelm and I'm ensuring that smart, non-native speakers of English secure the career and recognition that they deserve. The Clever Together Communication podcast is for advanced and native speakers of English, and it's helping you to become a better communicator in your career. Quite a lot of people say to me, "Oh, Corinne, you're so lucky, you're so charismatic." And I often think, that's a really weird thing to say, isn't it? I never really know how to react. So in preparation for this podcast, I thought about all of the charismatic people I know. I made a list of them. And I thought about what it is that makes them charismatic. What is it that they do? What is it that they say? What is it that they're doing with their body language? The whole thing. And you can see exactly who I was thinking about because I will be tagging those people when I post about this podcast episode in LinkedIn. So follow me on LinkedIn and you will see who I was thinking about. So let's take it one step at a time. There's 9 things really that I think help you to become more charismatic, more approachable. And one of them I discovered last night at a Toastmasters meeting. So in case you're wondering what Toastmasters is, it's a very global club where you learn to give speeches, but you also learn how to give really solid feedback and many other really useful career communication skills. So they said that I use my hands in conjunction with my tone of voice, and that apparently makes you super approachable. I use my hands a lot. I'm a very kind of physical speaker, if you like. Apparently, mirroring happens naturally in social interactions. So when you're feeling comfortable, accepted, welcome, then you'll tend to inadvertently copy what other people are doing. So you've probably experienced this firsthand, right? When you're out having a drink or a bite to eat with a friend or a partner, and you'll kind of go and have a drink at the same time, or you'll move on to the yogurt at the same time or something. And that's just because you're in sync with them. But actually you can trigger that kind of we're on the same pageness, if you like, by not copying and making somebody feel self-conscious. We don't want that. But if you have somebody who tends to kind of wipe the hair slightly to the right, or if they tend to fumble on their face when they're speaking, or twiddle with a pencil. Be subtle about this, of course. You can do something like that and see what happens, because when you do that, very often you'll kind of feel drawn to someone, and you'll notice that by mimicking or doing the same kind of body language, posture and facial expressions, you'll find that the conversation feels more friendly, more open, more warm, more connected somehow. So, you can try this out with your colleagues, with your family, with somebody on the bus for all I care. But, just try it out and see how that feels. Another thing I try and do is I do try and remember people's names. And I think this is always a lot more difficult if you meet a lot of people at the same time. Earlier in my career, I worked more as a trainer than a coach. So very often I'd have like 20 or 30 new faces at a time. And that is more challenging. Basically, if you want to get somebody's attention, if you want them to, feel respected, important, acknowledged, then using their name is a really easy way of doing that. And you can use names when you're either speaking to somebody, if you're writing to them, just drop it into the conversation, and it feels really natural once you get used to doing it. People feel picked up and addressed. So whether you use it in the LinkedIn message that you sent them, in which case, please spell it right. I get lots of LinkedIn messages spelling my name wrong. And my name is literally 3 millimeters away from where they're typing. If you're going to say their name, say it right. Today, I was teaching somebody, a lovely Herbert, but he's not Herbert, he told me today, it's Hubert. So get it right, because when you hear your name, there is a slight dopamine kick, isn't there? If somebody refers to you and they use your name in the conversation, you feel picked up, singled out, welcomed, taken seriously. So use people's names and see what happens. Really listen. When a person is speaking, the temptation is to think, what am I going to say next? And I've got a whole episode about this, episode 17, which is called Listening, Really Listening, Strategies to Make You Approachable. Only when you are really listening will you actually absorb what was said, and that's when you come over as being interested. Because the moment you're thinking about what you're going to say, you're not present in the conversation. That comes over. You might think that you're winging it, but very often, you're not. So you're in the conversation and you're genuinely listening to someone, and then you can analyze and form your answer. That will make you a lot more approachable too, because people like to be listened to. They like to be taken seriously. They like to be acknowledged. They like to be respected. And they deserve to be respected, right? The next is allowing people to talk. I have this real thing about monologues, drive me crazy. And I just zone out really, really fast in a monologue. You can do lots of things to break up a monologue. You can ask them questions. You can ask for clarification. You can get them to give you an example. You can ask them when that's not the case. Maybe there's an exception or a situation in which that wouldn't work. And get them to talk. Get them to open up and stop talking about yourself. Stop giving your opinions. Don't interrupt. Just let them speak, because they deserve some time to speak. So I've got this little exercise, right? Now, this sounds really simple, but when you try it, you'll realise that it's actually quite difficult. Next time you're in a conversation, just try not to say anything. Just let them talk. Because sometimes if there's a gap, it means that they're thinking about something. So indulge them with that thinking time. And especially if you ask a question, be very mindful to give them time to answer. A real question has a question mark, right? And I want you to imagine an empty box after that question mark. So the empty box is time for them to formulate their answer. Because they're a little bit behind you, right? They have to think about their answer. And if they're not a native speaker of English or the language that you are speaking in, then they might need just a few seconds longer. If you value their input, then you will indulge them with that time. You will give them that patience. I come from the UK, and what the Brits are really notoriously bad at is interrupting. So when I first came to Germany, I used to interrupt a lot. But this drove my husband absolutely crazy. I had to kind of unpick that rather British habit. If a thought does bubble up when you're speaking to somebody, feel free to jot it down or give yourself some kind of what I call a mental marker. You can write a little emoji or do something with your hands that will remind you, or just jot it down in a notebook or a piece of paper. People won't mind, because you'll be coming back to the conversation faster than if you're actually trying to remember that thought in your head. All you need is a keyword. So if you are working with British people, and I think the Americans do this a lot too, I certainly noticed that when I've been working with Americans, if they do interrupt a lot, catch their eye contact and let them know, that you're irritated. You can do that very, very effectively if you use your eyes very deliberately. So actually, by giving people the time to think about their answers, what you will notice is that you get more depth out of that conversation. you'll get beyond the surface level and you'll go into details. But for them to dive that deep, you need to give them a bit more time. Just like if you're diving in a pool, you have to take a breath before you go underwater. And it's the same with a conversation. The next thing I'd like to talk to you about is intention or presence. Now, the intention that you have might feel invisible, but actually our intentions are incredibly obvious to somebody that is tuned in. And you can learn this observation skill as well. So before you speak to someone, think about your intention. What's your intention behind this conversation? What do you want to achieve? And send that intention with your conversation. Let them know what you're after. You can verbalize it, but you can also let them know with eye contact. You can let them know by your body language. Let them know what you want them to do. Let them know what you want to do for them. The power of intention might sound a bit woo-woo, but actually I believe that it's one of the key things for really getting closer to a goal. And I think it's very, very critical in terms of establishing a deeper connection with somebody. Your communication goal. So what do you want them to get out of this conversation? Perhaps you can make that happen. And actors get to do this all the time. They get to put themselves in the shoes of the character that they're playing. And that is a hugely valuable skill to learn and practice. The next thing is to offer help. Now, I'm the kind of person, when I go to a networking event, I know a lot of people find networking events really tedious. But I think it is a matter of your mindset going into that event. So my mindset is, when I'm going into a networking event, I wonder who I'll meet. And when I'm speaking to them, I'm thinking, who do I know that could help this person? Or do I maybe have anything that they would appreciate reading? Or very often I'll be talking to somebody and I'll think, that book I read? I'll have to recommend it to them. 1 second, I'll wait until they've finished speaking. And then I go back into the conversation and then I'll say, I don't suppose you've read blah, blah. And if they say, no, that sounds interesting, well, you've got a great opportunity to get in touch with them and send it to them, haven't you? And, think about, how can I help this person? Who do you know that might be able to help them? What kind of tips might I have that might be helpful for them? I met somebody recently and I helped her with her TED Talk. What is it that you can do to help them? It might be information. It might be an idea. It might be a source of information, like check out this podcast or check out this app or whatever it is. But instead of looking at your own goals, charisma is about turning it around and thinking about the person in front of you. There's always a reason for helping. There's always a reason for getting involved. And when others are genuinely offering their help, it makes us warm to them, doesn't it? If somebody reaches out and offers you some advice or gives you a tip, you're like, thank you. That's really nice. Thank you. You appreciate it if somebody goes the extra mile or mentions something. And offering help is just a kind gesture. And if you like to be helped, help other people. And you'll find the more that you help other people will want to help you. But that shouldn't be your reason for doing it. But I'm just saying that's a rather nice side effect. I'm a big believer of giving more than I take in return, and I get very funny about things like borrowing a book and not giving it back. I get very anxious about that, so I tend not to borrow books. I tend to ask them to send me the title and I'll get it onto my Kindle or listen to it on Audible or something. But help other people. Find out what they need. Where are they struggling? What is it that's holding them back? What's worrying them? The 8th thing is authenticity. So, all of these things are great, but the real deal, being yourself, that goes a long way. So just be genuine, just be yourself. It's too much effort to try and be someone else. Save your energy for being brilliant at what you do. Just be yourself. And if you don't feel that you can be yourself in your current organisation, then this organisation is not the right organisation for you. If you feel that you cannot be yourself in front of your clients, then you're not attracting the right clients. Just be honest. Speak from the heart. And then give your best to the ones that do relate to you just the way you are, because that is a lot less stressful. Connect with people that have the same kind of energy as you, the same kind of interest as you, the same kind of vibe as you, the same kind of language as you. You can't really go wrong because you kind of like peas in a pod, really. You just have a different skill set to them. And of course, I have clients, for example, that are lawyers. They are very, very detail orientated. They really want to get it just right. This precision is very important to them. And that attention to detail can really put a dent in your fluency and approachability. If you're speaking in a robotic way, that's perfect for making a legal analysis where you have to get every detail just right. But it might not serve you so well if you're gaining the buy-in of a corporate client, for example, who are also talking to other lawyers with more, you've guessed it, charisma. Some lawyers might be motivated and inspired by my energy and creativity. I'm a very upbeat person. But some of those legal professionals might, on the other hand, find it a bit overwhelming or even intimidating. And some legal experts will find my soul-searching coaching style a little bit uncomfortable or invasive. And yet I adopt that approach because effective communication simply has to be insanely intentional. So do you see what I mean about working with the right kind of people for you? So be expressive, be yourself, and just see what happens when you do that. So learn to tell stories, open up, let people experience life from your perspective. Let people see how you tick. Vulnerable, yes. That's what charisma requires. It requires you to be more of an open book. It's reciprocal. It's a bit like smiling, If you're in the town somewhere or the city and you smile at somebody with a genuine smile, it's kind of impossible not to smile back. Well, it is for me. Maybe I'm a bit of a smiler. But it's the same with opening up to other people. If you open up to other people, they are much more likely to open up to you. And that takes your relationship with them to a different level. That's charisma. And remember that in addition to giving help or offering help, you also have to learn how to accept help. Learn how to accept a compliment. Learn how to accept people's support. Because by rejecting that is the polar opposite of being charismatic. Being grateful is a very charismatic gesture. Try being more observant. Pay the odd compliment. Show gratitude. Those 3 things can move the needle hugely in terms of charisma. And no, that's not sucking up to someone. That's just being observant. The last thing I would like to mention, because most of my clients are working very internationally, is have some awareness about culture. So this could be intercultural, it could be corporate culture. So by being interested in people and letting others get a word in edgeways, the likelihood is that you're genuinely interested in other people. Maybe you're a real problem solver and people's cultures make you curious. In terms of corporate culture awareness, you might have to get familiar with protocol, traditions and rituals. And many of my clients are working in international teams. So there is a certain degree of cross-cultural awareness that you need if you are not to upset people. That makes you approachable. It makes you charismatic, because there's something incredibly charming about someone being curious about you and your culture. So charm doesn't come in a bottle, and it's not something we're born with. It's more about giving. It's more about intention. And it's more about leaning into people. So why not try that? Try it with your friends. Try it with your family. Try it with your colleagues. And try it with your clients. Because you will notice that with charisma, life is a hell of a lot easier, honey. To summarise then, charisma comes down to the following: mimicking, be authentic, so make sure your body language is in tune with what you're saying, use people's names correctly. Number 3, don't interrupt, make sure you really listen, and more about that in episode 7. Number 4, give them the time and space to speak and think. Number 5, be intentional, be present in the conversation. Number 6, offer your help, think about their goals, not yours. Number 7, be observant. Number 8, be authentic, be yourself. Number 9, tell stories, open up, be a little bit more vulnerable. Number 10, be grateful. And number 11, have some cultural awareness. That's it from me. I hope that you've enjoyed this short episode about charisma. Why not try and do each one of those things for a day at work and see what happens. In time, automatically, you'll start drawing on those skills, pulling people towards you in a charismatic way. Because remember, all you have to do in life is be the very best communicator that you can be. Take care now. It's Corinne Wilhelm on the Clever Together Communication Podcast.